Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Mesechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Ayin Amud Aleph, 12 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Hahu Arya. Today's Amud is being learned. L'schut Refuah Shel Ma'av, Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, and Yasmin Bat Sarah, Shahram Shalom Ben Turan. בכלל שער חולה עמו ישראל, שלב רפואה שלמה. Amen. So says the Gemara in the long Amud of the stories that happened with questions of Yainesich, yet another fascinating story. There was a lion. They were in the place that they made the wine. There was a lion that entered the area, started roaring, and everyone ran for their lives, of course. And then you have all this wine that's there, and now you have a worker that's a goy. Hahu arya davanahim b'ma'atzarta. He was this goy. Shama uvet kochavim tasha benidani. The goy hears the roaring of the lion, and he goes and he hides in between the barrels, the large barrels of wine. Now he's there alone. Nobody was there, and he was mamash in inches away from all his barrels of wine. He could have tilted them, tipped them, taken from them, and be menasech. So the question is it mutar or asur? And of course, Rava with his amazing koach dehetera, he says is mutar. Amarava chamra shari. Why? Because this Oved Kochavim thinks to himself, well, there are all these people here. The lion came, everyone went hiding, so I came to hide in between the barrels. For all you know, behind this other barrel is another yid. And if I get up to do something that is halachically not sound, the Jew is going to see me, and therefore it's going to become a problem. Memar Amar, because he says, Ki hechi de tashina ana, just like I am hiding over here, same is with the Yisrael as well. Itchanami Yisrael achorai, the Jew also may be hiding behind me, v'kachazili, and he's going to see me. Hanao ganvi, the salki lepumbadita. Another story. There was a group of bandits, robbers, that they came to the city of Pumbedita, and they went ransacking houses and went through different residential areas. Upatchu chabita, in the process of looting and robbing the city, they opened many barrels of wine. So the question now is, these barrels that are opened, you would say, well, for sure, asur. As these people came, opened the barrels, literally opened the barrel. So we had questions before, if it looks closed, but it was with a goy, maybe he poked a hole, maybe he opened it and he sealed it again. This time is mamash open. You come in the morning, your jewelry is missing and your wine is open. So, says the Gemara, Amar Rava, Chamra Shari, still is mutar. This is awesome, right? Rava says everything is mutar. So why is this? What's the logic? What's the svara behind this kula, the leniency of Rava? Because Ruba Ganvi Yisrael, in the city of Pumbedita, the majority of bandits were Jews, unfortunately, right? So therefore, they may be stealing, but they for sure said Lashem Yichud beforehand. They're not of the Avodah Zarah. For sure they are Oved Hashem in that way. There are no atheists in the flock, so they're going there to the danger of being maybe caught. They certainly davened beforehand, said vidui and all that. So therefore, the wine is fine, says the Gemara, says Rava. So because the majority is Yisrael, we follow the majority. So says the Gemara, it's not the only time that this happened. This was in Pumbedita, in the other famous city in Bavel, Naharda, the place of Shmuel, same thing happened. People came in the morning, they found many houses ransacked and opened barrels of wine, and now the question is, what do we do with the wine? The psak of Shmuel was the same thing, that the wine is mutar. Now, in Harav, not necessarily you had majority Jews in the bandit, in the gangsters. So why is the svara to be mekel even in the Harav if you don't have majority of the thieves as Jews? Says the Gemara, come on, like who is the psak of Shmuel? Ke Rabbi Eliezer. It's like Rabbi Eliezer. What's the svara of Rabbi Eliezer? The Amar Safek Bia Tahor. Rabbi Eliezer has a shita by Taharot that Safek Bia is mutar. What is Safek Bia? Ditnan. We learned in a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, this is brought in several Mesechtes, in Bava Batra, in Pesachim, Hanichnas lebik'a bimot ha'geshamim. If you enter a field in the valley, bimot ha'geshamim, when the land is planted, is the time for rain, and nobody walks through the fields. You could go in the summertime, everything is dry and nice, it's not plantation season, people walk through the fields, they make shortcuts and so on and so forth. Nobody dares going in the middle of the field because it's planted. You're going to ruin the plantation, and hence the halacha of a bik'ah bimot ha'geshamim is like reshut hayachid. It's like a private domain because people, the masses of people, do not enter the valley. It's fields and it's been planted. Therefore, people do not enter it. It becomes halachically tantamount to Reshut HaYachid, to a private domain. Now, why does it matter? Private domain, public domain, who cares? The reason is because we have a halacha in the realm of Tum'ah v'Tahara that if you have a doubt about Tum'ah v'Tahara, really depends where the doubt happened. If it happens in Reshut Harabim, Safek Tum'ah b'Reshut Harabim, Sfekot Tahor. You're allowed to be lenient when you have a doubt that was created in public domain. But Safek Tum'ah b'Reshut HaYachid, but if the doubt of Tum'ah happens, whether I touched this or I didn't touch this item of Tum'ah, if that Safek happens in a private domain, Sfekot Tameh, you're Tameh. Where do we learn this from? We learn this from Isha Sota. That Sota is a woman that, against the warnings of her husband not to seclude herself with a specific person, she went ahead and she did it. And now she's called in Isha Sota. Now she has to go to Bet HaMikdash and bring the whole process of Korban and drinking the Mesota, so on and so forth, right? So the Torah calls this person Tameh. What? Kisati tumat achadisha. It's safek. We don't know if she actually violated the marriage that she has with her husband, with this man. We don't know that. But the Torah yet calls her Tameh because she went in seclusion with this man. Now, where do you go in seclusion? In seclusion, it's Reshut HaYachid, right? It's a private domain. And therefore, you see that when you have safek, and it's created by Reshut HaYachid, Sfekot Tameh. The Torah deals with it as Tumah. This may, very overly simplified, encapsulated. So it says the Gemara, this field right now, B'yemot HaGeshamim, has the halacha of a private domain. Nobody walks there really, because no one wants to ruin the field. It's all muddy and also it's planted. So if you have Safek Tum'ah B'Reshut HaYachid, if you go through, let's say, imagine you have a kever somewhere on a path. And this path, you don't know if you passed through this path. You don't know if you touched this kever, you didn't touch this kever. Maybe you have touched it. Yeah, I have no idea. If you have a safek like that, B'Reshut HaYachid, you will be Tameh. But if it's Reshut HaRabim, Sfekot Tahor. So in this case, that the field is in Reshut HaYachid, what should be the halacha? It should be Tameh. Safek tum'ah bereshut hayachid, safeko tameh. If you have a doubt about tum'ah v'tahara in a private domain, you should be tameh. But says the Gemara, if you have a tum'ah besadeh pelonit, if you have in one of the fields in this valley, one of the fields of the valley has tum'ah in it, says the Mishnah, ve'amar alachti b'makom halaz, and the fellow says, I know I went to this valley, I went through the whole valley, but I don't know if I passed through this field or not. Imagine if there are 10 fields in the valley. Says, I went through it, but I don't know if I went to field, number 5 or not. I don't know. So what's the halacha? You would say, Safek, Tum'ah, Bereshut, Hayachid, Safekot Tameh. No. Says the Mishnah, if he says, I don't know if I entered field 5 or not, Rabbi Eliezer Shita is, 2 lines up, Safek bi'ah tahor. If you don't know if you enter that land, you're tahor. Why? Because says Rabbi Eliezer, when we say Safek tum'ah bereshut hayachid safeko tameh, is when you know you went into the field, but you just don't know if you touched the tum'ah. But if you don't even know if you even entered the field, that's already more far-fetched. That's a safek rachok. It's a very remote safek. It's a minute percentage if you want to do statistical chances and so on. Rabbi Eliezer says it's mutar. Safek magat tameh. Yeah, if you have safek, maybe I touched it, maybe I didn't touch it, then it's going to be tameh. But if you don't even know if you entered the field that has tum'ah in it, maybe you went into all the other 9 fields, but not in this one, then you're tahor. So says the Gemara, Shmuel holds the same way. Right? Why? Because Shmuel holds the people that ransacked the houses, there's bandits that came, there's some Jews, there's some Goyim. Now, we don't have like Pumbedita that are majority Jews. If you had majority Jews, Shalom al Yisrael, right there and then you could say it's mutar. Because al pi rov, a Jew touched it. But here, it's not majority, but it's safek. You don't know if the one that touched it, if a goy even came to my house. Yeah, my house is, the guy comes in the morning, sees his house is ransacked. Did the goy enter my house? I have no idea. It's not like I caught the goy red-handed in my house. I come and I see the aftermath of eluding in my house. I don't know if he was a Jew, or maybe an Oved Kochavim never even entered my house. So that, says the Gemara, according to Rabbi Eliezer, is considered Safek Biyah. Maybe he came, maybe a goy came to my house, maybe he didn't. And therefore, it's mutar. That's maybe the Shita of Shmuel. Yes, amazing insight. The Gemara says no, not necessarily. Because it could be much more simple than that. Shani hatam kevon de ika the patchu l'shem mamona have a safek. So the Gemara says no. It could be much more simple. Even if you don't paskin like Rabbi Eliezer, that safek biyah is mutar, is tahor, still you could have the din, the halacha of Shmuel. Why? Because let's be open and analyze what happened. You come in the morning, you see your house ransacked, so now you have a question. Who came here? Maybe he was a Jew, so then the whole thing is not Yain Nesech. Maybe he was an Oved Kochavim. But even if he was an Oved Kochavim, you have a second doubt. Maybe the Oved Kochavim opened this barrel to drink from it and pour from it and say his prayers to his garbage deity. Or maybe he opened it because you know what people used to do? People used to hide their jewelry and their valuables inside the barrel, sealed, looking like a barrel of wine. So maybe he opened it to see inside to make sure it's not one of those jackpots that you could hit sometimes in a Jewish house. So therefore, you have a suffix feka, the concept of the compounded doubt, a double doubt, that maybe he was a Jew. And even if you want to say he was a guy, maybe he opened it just to check to see if there are any jewels inside, and then he just left it. He never was menasech, was not interested in drinking, not in tilting, not in pouring, nothing. He just wants to look for, is a gold digger, right? That's what it is. So says the Gemara, therefore Shmuel has a svara rakel. Hahu, Rebita, another story, and the ishtakach, the havat bedani. They came and they found a non-Jewish girl, a ovedet kochavim, that was in between the barrels of wine, but not just in between the barrels of wine, but this time you talk about red-handed. She was red-handed. The reddish foam that you find usually on top of the barrel of wine was on her hands. So that's like, being caught red-handed. You say, oh, he caught you. That's what you would imagine. I would say, of course, this case should be asur, right? Says the Gemara, Vavonekita, ufya biyada. Rava says, at this point, there's no surprise anymore. Rava says, this one also is mutar. Chamra, shari. The wine is mutar. Why? This is for sure a scenario in which she has touched the wine. You can smell it, you can see it. It looks like wine, it smells like wine, it is wine. So says the Gemara, no, because Emor, Migaba de Chabita Shakalte. We say that she took this foam that usually forms on top of the wine from the top of the Chabit. She did not touch the wine inside the barrel at all. Even though, said Rava, not only in regular case, but even though, the Leka too, that you don't see any foam on any of these chaviot, any of these barrels, still we say it's mutar. Why? Because Emar itramuye itramila. We assume that there was foam on one of them, and she literally took a whole thing off. There's no more foam left because she took it all off, but she never really touched the wine. So Rava says, even there, you could be making. Hahu pulmusa, the Salik Narada, he had an army, a group of troops, soldiers, that came through the city of Naharda. Patchu chavita tuva. Well, when the soldiers of the king, the army would come in, they didn't need any warrants to enter a house to do whatever they wanted. They went in. It's like the Russian army. They would take whatever they want. They would eat whatever they want. And they came in. They opened a lot of barrels of wine. Ki ata Rav Dimi. When Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, and this again, remember this happened in Naharda in Bavel, so Rav Dimi is from Eretz Yisrael, says, oh, I remember we had a case like this in Eretz Yisrael as well. Right? Amar, ufta kamed Rabbi Elazar. This story, similar to this, happened in front of Rabbi Elazar. Now, usually, Rav Dimi is a student of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Elazar also is a student, a senior student of Rabbi Yochanan. We remember that when we discussed the life and legacy of Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish as being brother-in-laws and chavrutas, when Resh Lakish unfortunately died and Rabbi Yochanan was depressed, we mentioned that Rabbi Elazar was Mara Da'ara de Yisrael, was the greatest Talmid Chacham after Rabbi Yochanan, and Chachamim suggested him as the chavruta. It didn't work out, right? What Rabbi Elazar is one of the top Talmidim of. Rabbi Yochanan is almost like a Talmid Chaver, and Rav Dimi is now mentioning something that happened with the psak that Rabbi Elazar gave. So Rabbi Dimi says, I remember something exactly like this happened in Eretz Yisrael, and this was a question that was brought to Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Elazar said, mutar. Why? Why this would be mutar, says the Gemara, velo yedana, I don't know. I have safek whether it's mutar because he holds like Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Eliezer, that we just discussed, that safek biyah is mutar. Did Rabbi Elazar hold like Rabbi Eliezer that because you don't know who ransacked every single Jew, we don't know, there are Jewish soldiers there, right? It's not everybody going. So maybe the one that opened my barrel was a Jew. And therefore it's not, and even if you want to say it was a guy, maybe he came to just see if you could find some valuables. Is that the svara of Rabbi Elazar? Or maybe the svara of Rabbi Elazar is much more simple, And that is like Shmuel, that he felt that the Polmusa, this specific troop, was Rubo Yisrael. The majority of this group of soldiers were Jews. Maybe it was like the first case that we had in Pumbedita, that we said, Rov Ganvi Yisrael. So says the Gemara, Sava Ruba de Asli Ba'ade Polmusa Yisrael Ninu. So says the Gemara, therefore, if that's the case, Hai Safek Bia, Safek Magau. Well, it says that's not Safek Bia. They're for sure there, but it's Safek Maga. It's not. Maybe they touched it. Maybe they didn't touch it. It's not a doubt in whether or not they came in or they didn't. It's a question. Like Rashi explains, Ulkaman Pari Chalaf Safek Biahu, the Vaday Ovet Kochavim Havu. There's no question to say that the Polmus in Neharda, they were Jews. Jews, they skipped the army in Neharda. They would not be part of the soldiers of the king. So they're Vaday Goyim. So therefore, it's not Safek Biah. You know that they came and they were goyim. The question is, if they touched it, maybe they just wanted to look for gold and for goodies, but they definitely came. It's not a safek bi'ah that maybe a goy never came to my house. Yeah, it came. Of course, because one of the soldiers came to your house, and all the soldiers are goyim. So says the Gemara, Kevan de miftech ituva ema data de mamona patchu. The one says, yeah, you're correct. But here also you have an element of leniency that you didn't have in the other one. Here, like one person comes to the house, how many barrels of wine do you open for one person? You certainly don't open 15 barrels for one person. So if you have a number that's disproportionate for people who were there, then they did not open this to drink and to pour. They opened it because they want to know what's inside. They're looking for that one barrel of the treasure that you hid all of your jewelry, and therefore they're not. The Safek Maga is a much more remote Safek. It is almost 10th amount of Safek Bia in that case, because, again, remember the Svara of Rabbi Eliezer, in whether or not you've entered that field in the valley was, if you didn't even enter it, right? If you don't even know that you entered it, I should say, then it's a much further safek. It's a minute percentage of statistical chances, and therefore, so says the Gemara, here also is minute statistical chances. Because the whole scenario doesn't make sense. Now, for one person, you would open 20 barrels of wine, so therefore we know that they didn't open them to touch them, they opened them to check them, to see if they contain any gold and silver, and therefore it's mutar. Hahu mesovita de masrale ikleda maftecha leovedet kochavim. There was a storekeeper, Jewish woman, a storekeeper, they had wines in the store, and she wanted to safeguard the key to the store, so she gives the key for keeps, for shmirah, to her friend, the Ovedet Kochavim. Amar Yitzchak said, in the name of Rabbi Lazar, Uvda hava b'midrasha. This happened, this question was brought, similar question to this was brought to the Beit Midrash. Ve'amru, and they said, Lo masra la ela shemirat mafteach bilvad. They said it's mutar because you did not leave the store in the hand of Obed. In that case, it would be asur, as we learned in the past staff. But here, you lock the doors of the chanut. You just don't want to take the chance of losing the key, so you give your key in a safe deposit of this woman. She's just keeping the key safe for you. She has no reshut. She's not allowed to get anywhere close to the store. If she takes that key and opens the store and she's caught, that would be embarrassment of the generation. It would be on front page of every newspaper, because she's not allowed to do that. You're not saying keep my store. It's not allowed anywhere near your store. You should just keep keeping the key safe, therefore it will be mutar, says the Gemara. Amar Abaye, Abaye said, Afana nami tanina, we learned something very similar in the Braita as well. HaMoser maftechot de amaares, in the case of taharot, if you give the key to the storage house of your chulin, of your produce, to the goy, we don't say, well, he had access to your storage, so he went there and he probably touched all the chulin, everything is tamim. We don't say that. Because he has no reshut to go open your storage. You're just giving his like a safe deposit box for your key. That's it. He's not allowed to use the key to open this store, or the storage in this case. Therefore, all of his chulin that are contained in that storage house, they're all tahor lefi shelo masar lo ela shemirat mafteach bilvad. He only gave the mafteach to be kept, and now the Abaye wants to learn from this to our case. Abaye says, well, by case of taharot, you're mekel. By yain nesach, for sure you have to be mekel. Right? Hashta taharotav teorot. Yain nesach mi baya, yain nesach. And the one says, what are you talking about? Since when yain nesach became less important than tumah v'tahara? Remember the taharot, alimim yain nesach. You want to suggest that taharot are more strong, are a bigger chumrah, are more chamur than yain nesach even? The Gemara says, yes. And the Gemara is going to now go through a process of trying to prove that indeed, whether or not the Taharot are more or less important than Yain Nesech, which is going to bring us to the next Mishnah, Be'ezrat Hashem. We will continue this in the days to come.